Rudi Wood. Can I have a round of applause for Rudi Wood, Sales Development of Fresh Relevance. Big round of applause.
It's brilliant seeing him up here in his element, isn't it? Hi everyone, my name's Rudi. I'm an SDR at a company called Fresh Relevance. James has already had you having your hands up, so I'm going to get started with, can I have a show of hands if anyone's ever heard of imposter syndrome? Brilliant. Can you keep them up if you've ever felt or experienced it? Perfect. Keep them up still. Have a little look around. Everyone that's got your hand up, you're not on your own. It is completely normal. So it's okay to feel that way. Most people in this room will feel like at some point they can't achieve something or don't deserve their success. I'll be completely honest. I'm stood up here right now with imposter syndrome. James asked me to do a talk, and I thought, what gives me the right to stand here and tell you lot how to be an SDR? There's an amazing Richard Branson quote where he says, if someone offers you an opportunity and you don't know how to do it, say yes and learn how after. That's the mindset that I want everyone in this room to walk away with tonight. I got told a little while ago that I was a bit of a perfectionist. Effectively, what that meant for me was I wouldn't try things because I was scared I wouldn't succeed. So I want to extend to all of you, become okay with failing, fail fast, and fail forward. If you were one of the people that didn't put your hands up to feel imposter syndrome, I do question, are you challenging yourself enough, and are you stepping out of your comfort zone? If you do feel it, embrace it, and push through it. That takes me nicely onto my next point, which is about attitude and self-belief. It is infectious. If you're sat in a room full of negative people, be the one to make the change. Those that say they can and those that say they can't are usually both right. This is one of the very, very rare jobs where you're told no over and over and over again, basically being told that you're not good enough on a daily basis. You are good enough. You need to believe that. Can I have another show of hands of anyone that's ever heard of Michael Jordan? I'm glad there's a few hands up there. It might sound like a surprise, but he only ever scored 9 game-winning shots, but he missed 26. If he didn't believe in himself, he wouldn't have kept asking for the ball, and he wouldn't have become one of the greatest basketball players in history. How did he do that? Self-belief. A great way to build self-belief is by keeping the small promises that you make to yourself. You're all SDRs, or most of you are. Is that the extra cold call at the end of the day? Is that the follow-up email that you promised a prospect? Is it going to the gym when you said you would in the morning? Is it keeping a healthy diet when you said you'd try and lose some weight? These small promises compound and help you build confidence in yourself. One key thing that I've learned from podcasts, books, and people that I've worked with in the past is the thing that separates people that succeed to people that don't. Usually the ones that succeed are the ones that never gave up. So whether you're looking for a new role, whether it's your first SDR job like me, second, third, or even fourth, I want you not to give up if this is the career you want to follow. If you miss, ask for the ball and take another shot. While you're asking for the ball, I want you to look around at the team that you're with. I want you to seek out like-minded people, and this is incredibly underrated, so well done to all of you making that first step to come here tonight. We've spoke about Michael Jordan. Would he have won 6 championships without teammates like Scottie Pippen or a coach like Phil Jackson? Probably not. Even individual contributors like Usain Bolt have a team around them and are coached on a daily basis. Surround yourself with people with a vision. You are the average of the people you hang around with, but you're also the average of the people you work with. So make sure you're sat at the right table. Don't be scared to ask for help. I think this one's been huge for me. Reaching out to James, I'm actually a member of Sales Confidence. I used to be a lonely little SDR on my own at one point. I did make a change. I've moved somewhere that's got a team, and I've flourished since I've done that. It was also pointed out at one of our Sales Confidence dinners, 3 of the members said that they were there because they felt lonely in their sales role, and that was from SDRs all the way to the top. Be proud of what you do. Salespeople don't always have a great reputation, which is fine, but our customers do need us. Most of the time, they can't get out of their own way to find the right product. And as an SDR, you don't really sell anything. You just help people create opportunities. Make sure you be yourself. This is one of the things I've learned. If you have a calm, slow approach on the phone, use that. If you think you've got the gift of the gab, use that. Be open to trying other people's methods, but don't change who you are. James didn't get me up here tonight because he knows I'm an amazing SDR. He's never heard one of my calls or seen one of my emails. But he knows I'm incredibly passionate about what I do, and I always turn up as my authentic self. So thank you, James, very much for the opportunity. I would like to wrap it up by recapping. If you feel imposter syndrome, lean into it. Make sure you walk away tonight with the right attitude and that you believe in yourself. Surround yourself with the right people, take pride in what you do, and always be yourself. Thank you.
Came tonight because of the networking. So I like to come and speak to other SDRs at what we do and kind of get a feel of what other people do for work and the companies that they work for. The most valuable thing that I picked up tonight was from Brad's speech, kind of about trial and error from SDRing. So I think with outreach, what I struggle with the most is kind of getting stuck in my ways. So knowing that there's different avenues to kind of do outreach for is positive.
So introducing next, we've got Isabella Tunstall, who's a business development representative at Sixth Sense. So Bella joined the company in August, and Sixth Sense help revenue teams know everything they need to know about their buyers, so they can easily do anything they need to do to generate more opportunities, increase deal size, get into opportunities sooner, compete and win more often. So welcome to the stage, Bella.
Hello. Hello, I'm Bella from Sixth Sense. I've been an SDR here for 8 months, and I used to be a recruitment consultant beforehand. So when I was asked to speak today, I thought I'd speak about something that's helped me as a BDR, as an SDR, and what's kind of, I feel, made me be successful and get to where I am today. And that is all about AE and BDR alignment. Have we got my slide? Oh, yeah, come on. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you, sorry. So, sort of getting into it, the first point is definitely agreeing on the accounts that you're going to work that week with your AE. And really understanding why. Every one of you sitting here obviously sells a software or is a BDR for a software company and understands and believes in the value of your product. So I really think setting out that goal and believing in why people need you and why people want your product is great. And then obviously linking that to the account and to why the persona, will be interested in having that initial belief. And I think that really helps create a hypothesis with your AE, one that you believe in and one that you see, really engaging with the prospect and with the account. And I think really understanding why accounts would be engaged or why these accounts are the right ones to focus on for that week. At Sixth Sense, we use our own product. So we understand if they're in the buying cycle, if they are engaged in our product, but you might have seen something, on LinkedIn or on the website. Using that information to your, to yourself. Next is, sort of understanding what engagement you already have with that account and playing to each other's strengths. An AE might be a bit more developed in the role, they will have more experience. So my AE has a really kind of broad network on LinkedIn, so sort of playing to that strength. If he's got connections with someone, use that to your strength. If you're an AE that's really confident in making videos or voice notes, use that to your strength and work with your AE and work with your hypothesis that you've created and believe in why your product can really serve a purpose for someone. And I think joining discovery calls has really helped me learn a lot about the role. It's given me confidence in terms of learning new questions, what to ask on cold calls, and learning about how our product really does help people and how we sort of position it for different, different personas or different accounts. And like every time you can absorb a little bit more information. And I think lastly is just the communication with your AE. Feel comfortable to have a backwards and forwards, friendship and have fun with it. Like, be friendly. Sometimes I speak to my AE for like 15 minutes about what we've done at the weekend, and that's totally fine because you want to build those relationships. And I think having the relationship with my AEs that's tight and not sort of disjointed has really allowed me to succeed in the role. And I think sometimes as a BDR, we can get really caught up in hitting our target, it's the end of the month, and there is so much more to the role than just that, and there is other elements of success, whether you've sent really successful emails or had really successful calls, and you and your AE can join together and, you know, really success and, you know, celebrate those wins. So yeah, just to recap, the things that I think have really helped me is really building a strong hypothesis of why you're targeting that account and how your product is helping you and believing in that. And lastly, having fun with your AE, having a genuine relationship with them, and you know, you're both helping each other out at the end of the day and looking together as things as a team. So lastly, we do have a giveaway. So if you want to scan the QR code and maybe implement some of the things I've spoken about, what we can do is if you fill in your keywords, competitors, and ICP, what we'll do is generate 100 accounts that are in market for your solution. So they might be actively prospecting you, they might be looking at your competitors, and what you can do is take those accounts and use them in your prospecting next week, and hopefully you can get some wins. And hopefully some meetings for your AE so you can forge that relationship. Thank you very much. I'll sort the link out.
I actually know one of the people that actually work here. His name's Alex Newell, and we were in a previous program together at Trainio, and a bunch of friends at Trainio decided for all of us to get together here today and to meet other SDRs. The most important thing is to be yourself and never be afraid to be curious and to do better. I think one of the most important and valuable lessons to be learned is, you know, if at the end of the day somebody's got to jump in and take the next step in order to get potential customers. So I think this is a great avenue and opportunity to not only meet people but to network and gain a few confidence skills as well. I think the most important and most valuable thing I've learned here from sales confidence is the fact that everybody has got a story. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, and I think what's most engaging is the fact that regardless of your background or where you're from, I think great sales leaders are born from each and every background, as well as, you know, coming from different walks of life. I think that's really important because I guess sales is an industry where you can sort of pivot at any different point of your life and at any age, actually. So I think that's actually a really great avenue for people. Yeah.
This next speaker's actually become a bit of a regular sales confidence speaker, but he's made a transition in the last year from SDR to account manager. And I know there's a lot of you thinking about what's the next step you're going to take. Is it into an AE role? Is it an SDR leader role? Is it to a senior SDR role? So I think Bryan's going to have something to share here where he talks about the road less taken to an account manager role. Bryan joined SalesLoft as an enterprise SDR in August of last year. He's been a mentor to many SDRs, especially in our membership. And he also launched his own podcast, Life with Why? And he's just an all-round good chap. So we can have a big round of applause for Bryan, please.
Thank you very much. I really wish, so I've spoken at a couple of sales conference events. I wish I had put like a link to my own inbox directly above my head to gather a bunch of inbound leads. That was incredible. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Bryan Mulray. I'm an account manager for SalesLoft. There's three kind of main things you need to know about me. I was an SDR for 2.5 years, one of which was in Google, 1.5 was in SalesLoft. I speak really quickly with a thick Irish accent, so if you can't understand what I'm saying, throw something at me. My prospects do worse, don't worry about it. And the third thing is I gesticulate wildly and move around very quickly, so if I fall off the stage, you're going to catch me. Look, what I'm going to talk about today very quickly is the transition from SDR to account manager. My idea for raising hands has already been stolen, but we'll do it anyway. Anybody in here who's an SDR and knows what your next move is going to be, can you put your hand up? Or know kind of what you want your next role to be? Incredible. So those of you who have your hands up, please do keep them up. Please keep it up if that role that you want is an account exec. So that's the thing. I put up a poll today in a group that I'm in, and 80% of SDRs that I looked at want to be AEs next. I was one of them 6-7 months ago. What I'm going to talk about today is the way that you need to figure out what your own personal strengths are, whether or not they match what the next role is going to be, and when you decide what the next role is going to be, how to build that personal brand internally to make sure that you get that role. The easiest way I can describe it is every single SDR is told that the skills for being an SDR is very similar to the skills for being an AE. That is incredible until you become an AE and have to demo, close, deal with people who deal with legal, and go, I've never done this before. The way I like to describe it is an SDR is like a detective. Your job is to gather all the insights, get all the information together, create a little hypothesis, get all that information together, but you then give it to a judge. You give it to the account exec, and their job is to figure out if it's a deal worth running. Detectives don't become judges, judges don't become detectives, but the skills are somewhat linked. What you need to do is figure out what your skills are. Easiest way I can describe this, your gut will tell you. So there's a bit of a reflective exercise that you have to do. Pick someone that you can be reflective with. Maybe it's your partner, it could be a boss, it could be your parents, it could be a counselor, and talk about the things you really, really, really like about your role and what you really, really, really don't like. And this is everything from making cold calls to how you feel on calls. Do you prefer talking to people internally? Do you prefer talking to people externally? Do you prefer knowing what you're talking about? Do you prefer figuring out what other people's problems are? When I did this exercise, and I was certain I wanted to be an AE, when I did this exercise, I found out I really like talking to external clients. I really, really, really like talking to people when I know more than them about the scenario that they have. See? And I really, really enjoy like finding money. Like, all SDRs know this. When you're on a call and you're doing a discovery call and someone says, yeah, we need 100 licenses, that's just a little part of your brain that's that dopamine hit. You can keep that in sales roles. What I hated was earning people's time. Getting into a call and feeling as though I had to earn their time in that. I also hated having short-term, short-lived relationships with people. I enjoyed being able to plant a seed in January and then be able to come back to them in June or July and not need to close that deal in January because my boss is down my neck for the end of the financial year. So I decided then to figure out where my skills were mapped to. I was very lucky. In SalesLoft, SDRs have not just gone to AE. A bunch of them have, but you've got some who've gone to account management, customer success, professional services, sales engineering. Tom Boston made his own role. I was very lucky that people had already walked through those other jobs and had kind of created those paths. I needed to figure out which one was good for me. If you are uncertain, first thing you do is you talk to everyone in your team about kind of what they're thinking. Then you talk to people on those teams. Talk to a CSM, what do they do? Talk to an AM, what do they do? Talk to an AE, what do they do? You need to figure out what they really, really, really love doing, and you got to figure out what they hate doing on a day-to-day basis, but it's worth the good stuff. For me, I found out that account managers absolutely really love just having long-term conversations with people. They hate it when people churn. That's just that number one thing. You get that email, hey, we're leaving, and then you got to deal with a whole mess. But I found out that they really enjoyed the other conversations so much that they were willing to have the bad, I'm going to forecast this deal and it closes. And it doesn't close, churn, I love this customer, but this customer doesn't love me conversations. So I found a little bit of a niche that I wanted to be in the account management space. This might not be the space for you, but don't immediately go to an AE. Simply because the best SDRs are not necessarily the best AEs, and your skills, while you might be using them to the best of your abilities as an SDR to find those extra pieces of information, might not help you close those deals, and you might not be happiest there. I'm not saying you won't. I'm saying you should know in your own brain. Trust your gut. Second step, talk to everybody. Figure out what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. One of them will jump out at you. Trust your gut in that conversation. Talk to their managers and ask them what the top performing reps do. And if they use words that you want people to use to describe you, that's your role. Now you got to get it. For that, this is a tip for everybody. Start getting the current people in that role to coach you into doing the job. So if you want to be an AE, get an AE to bring you through an entire sales process. If you want to go into management, get someone to walk you through what a coaching plan looks like and get you to do it to yourself. If you want to be an account manager like I was running best practice sessions. And what that means was, when my application went into the account manager, the sales director, her response was, yes, of course, because I'd already built that internal brand, rather than, who's this guy? I promise you, when you put that application forward, you don't want them to think, who's this guy? So I'm not the one to tell you personally about what that personal brand is going to be. That comes a little bit later on. But the main things you need to figure out are, everybody has this road that they've already pre-mapped from SDR, going down the AE route. It is an incredible route. Just might not necessarily be for you. Make sure you test that. If it is the right road for you, it'll pass that test. If not, check out the other options for you and find the one that really, really sits with you in your gut. After that, make sure you build that internal brand so that when the hiring managers see your application come through, they have that good feeling as well. They have that feeling that goes, yes, of course I'll hire this person. I will leave you with that, and hopefully I've left you with a pretty solid good feeling as well. Thank you for your time, guys.
It was taking a data-driven approach to my daily job, looking at like the closed-off reports, closed-arm reports, really being specific and deliberate where I spend my time. An environment with people in a similar position to you, so you can learn from not only people that have been there before, but people going through it with you at the same time, so you can really sort of feed off each other and learn in that respect.
On to our next speaker. We're going to be joined by Gabs Bolijova, who's the SDR team lead at Hook. And she's going to be telling everybody how to get what you want as an SDR. Gabs started her sales career in 2019 with Tessian, where she joined as an SDR before being promoted twice. She joined Hook in her current role last year, where she began helping B2B subscription companies know which customers to focus on and which actions to take to drive faster growth. Take it away, Gabs.
Thank you, Elaine. Cool, really excited to be here and grateful to have been invited. It is my first speaker event. Actually, and truth be told, when I was preparing, my talk was around 20 minutes long. So don't worry, I have significantly cut it. I saw someone's eyes widen over there. I'll jump straight into it. So the title of my talk is How to Get What You Want as an SDR. I bet getting what you want means different things to different people. So throwing it out to you guys, what is it that you want right now as SDRs? Whether that's something to achieve, to learn, to get. Any answers? 2 meetings a day? Anyone else? Nice. Cool. Okay. All right. Well, look, I believe that getting what you want and being successful, rather, in getting what you want starts with mastering one key skill, and that is your internal selling. Now, by internal selling, what that refers to is how you promote your ideas, right, and communicating them, their value, their impact to the rest of your team, to your colleagues. It's advocating for initiatives, for projects. It's influencing key decision makers within your organization and fostering a sense of urgency. All of that in order to gain support and buy-in, right, for your ideas from your colleagues, and especially those who have the power to make changes within your organizations. So my goal is to share with you a framework that could help you to become better at internal selling and hopefully empower you to be able to have conversations that might feel a little bit tough to have, but ultimately will help you get what you want out of your roles and careers. So if you think about scenarios, for example, let's say you need a marketing asset. Prospects asked you for a one-pager, and it just doesn't exist at the moment, right? Big issue for you, you can't send that over. If we think about you feel like the lead qualification criteria is way too rigid or way too strict at your current companies, which has meant that some of your ops haven't flipped in the past, or your call connect rates are really low as a team, and it's frustrating, right? Because you're sat there making cold calls, and you've just found out there's a new tool on the market that can help you with those things. And by the way, if anyone does know of a tool like that, do catch me afterwards. But all of these scenarios, all of these situations start with a problem, right? And your job is to identify that problem and to propose a solution to it, which ultimately is sales, right? We do that every day in our roles. Yet, most salespeople, and not only SDRs, by the way, don't apply the same diligence and rigor or even process as they do with prospecting when it comes to selling internally to get what they want or to inspire change. Too often you might hear your peers complaining about something and not really offering up a solution for it, and then being annoyed that nothing's changing, nothing's happening just because they've said it's not working. And trust me, we've all been there, and that's why I think the SDR role is super important and such a great opportunity to start learning and practicing skills that will that essentially assist you throughout your entire career. And I think that learning to master internal selling is a life skill. I'd go as far as to say that that will help you personally and professionally. So if you think of your managers and your managers' managers as your buyers, you want to highlight a problem to them, right? Or get them aligned, right, to a problem that you've identified. You want to bring the right data to them to convince them of how big a problem this actually is. And then you want to show them that you're proactive enough and have had the initiative to come up with a solution to this problem. And if we simplify outbound prospecting for a second, fundamentally we're doing very similar things here, or should be anyway, when it comes to internal selling. I will say, though, that there are two things that if you add them to the equation, they will ultimately boost your chances of being successful when you do things like this, internally sell, which is internal brand that Bryan's just touched upon, so your colleagues' perception of you and your reputation within the organization. And the second thing, quite obviously, is your performance as well. All of those things will give you extra credit, right? And so, that is why the talk was originally 20 minutes long, so I won't touch on those two areas. But if you are interested, you can speak to me afterwards. Back to internal selling then. The framework that I'll leave you with is we first have to identify the problem, right, or the pain. Then we quantify that problem. We offer a solution to it as the third step, and then finally we highlight the benefit of that solution. I will say that it's worth noting, if you can frame the problem as one that's affecting the wider team, and if you can position the solution as one that will benefit the wider sales org, then you're absolutely #winning, and your chances of success are way, way higher. So I wanted to go through a couple of examples. I don't know, I should have looked when I started to check my timing, but cool. I was going to go through an example with you to actually see how you can apply this framework and take away, some actionable advice. The first thing I was going to go through, which I won't, but I'll tell you in case you want to know about it afterwards, is if you do feel like your lead qualification criteria is, way too rigid and you want to somehow plant the seed for that to be adjusted a bit, etc., had a go at writing a bit of a script following that framework, but I can share that with you afterwards. The one I will share instead then is related to my journey that I took from SDR to account manager at Tessian. It's something I did, so it works if you rely on one data point. Essentially, so obviously as an SDR, you barely have an opportunity, a bit like, again, Bryan's touched upon, to practice the next role you're jumping into before you get into it. And so how do you convince, let's say, the AE manager to invest in you, right, and to consider you a ready and worthy candidate when the time comes? So here's how I'd approach that problem, essentially, is first, if we follow the framework, so identify the problem. Hey, Gabs, speaking to the AE manager. Hey, Gabs, I know you mentioned in the sales meeting that you'll be hiring for an AE next quarter. As you know, I really want to apply for that role and be on your team, but definitely aware that I'm lacking the right skills and experience right now, especially when it comes to running discovery calls and later stage deals. Second step would be to quantify that pain. You mentioned, Gabs, as well, that you're looking to reduce the ramp time for AEs from 9 months to 6 months. Otherwise, hitting next year's targets becomes pretty difficult. Third step of the framework, you offer a solution. Okay, Gabs, I've got a way that we can both help each other. Would you be open to scheduling 30 minutes with me every other week to practice discovery calls? You can give me feedback. I can also share with you learnings I've had from later stage deals that I've watched on Gong, and learn from your expertise and apply whatever I can to my current job. And then finally, you highlight the benefit, right, of the solution. in this case would be, by spending this time with me, you will help to reduce my ramp time and successfully transition into the AE role. And it also means that I won't need to take up as much time from the AEs when I do come and see to ask them questions. And I can just hit the ground running sooner to deliver revenue for the company way quicker. And so that for me is, incredibly effective data-driven communication, because you want to make it easy for your buyers to, one, decide to do something about the problem you've raised, and two, you want them to choose your solution, right, that you've proposed. Now, I can't stand here and guarantee that this is going to work every single time, right? Your efforts in internal selling or following this framework. Of course, it doesn't work that way. But what I can guarantee is that you will get better at communicating effectively, and you'll get better at influencing people, and your managers will love you for it as well. And the next time that you do want to, make a change or have something, happen your way, the credibility you would have built from having taken this approach and, been conscious and thoughtful in your internal selling will just do you many favors. So, that's my talk on internal selling. It's often underrated and overlooked, but so powerful and so important in making you successful throughout your career. So if you've got any personal examples that you'd love to walk through later, I'm more than happy to help. And thank you very much. This was really fun. Yeah.
So what made me come tonight is actually a shout out to Alex. I was at Trainio. We were training together at the train cohort, as well as the fact that there's a rich persona of people here that, I'm really into networking. I run a networking club, and this is exactly my street. Something valuable has been the experiences that some of the SDRs are having. Just the fact that a couple of people we had our training, but a couple of ways we'd have to kind of change the approach, depending on, the way you're going for it, whether kind of thinking about it from a prospect approach or a product approach. And that's what I learned from Brad, who's just there, and he's a top lad. Think about sales confidence. In the name itself, it just excites me. Sales confidence, you got to look the part, feel the part, and just the whole energy behind it, I think, is very much of a motivation for me to get into that kind of mindset. I think it's all about the mindset and having that kind of growth, conscious about it. And it's like a habit. I want to make sure I come as much as I can, and definitely be very open to opportunities in the future. And who knows, the next person you might meet, that might be an opportunity. So a lot to win. One word to sum it up: valuable.
One thing I want to highlight is that it's important to stand out in the room and network your way, and you can network your way to the top. And I love people that come and interact with me, and even if I look busy, come and say hello. Brad's one of those guys who's up next, and he literally has been on my radar since he arrived in London. He's a bit of a cheeky chappy. How old are you, Brad, just as a heads up? 42. You look it. How old are you really? 19. He's 19, right? On his intro, he says, with almost 5 years experience. I think I wrote it. But he's 19, right? And literally, once you connect with him and you hear him speak, you'll realize why he's got that zest for a sales career. He's done a fantastic job becoming an SDR and now an enterprise SDR at Cognizant. And among his achievements, he's exceeded targets and pipeline since April this year. Can we have a big round of applause for Brad Norgate, please?
Thank you very much. I've gone a bit numb. I've just sat down there. It's nice to. Everyone else has done something interactive. So, good. Everyone, just put your hands up. Everyone in the room. Okay, put your hands down. So that's that out of the way. Number. When I was thinking about what to talk about, I was like, I don't really know how I'm going to fill 7 minutes. But now I've had a few drinks, I'm worried about speaking for 17. So James, just tell me if I go too much. Basically, what I want to speak about is how to book as many meetings as you possibly can and then get promoted quickly and just be a sales legend, basically. Not that I have any experience in that, just how to do it. And that there's one way that that I think is most crucial to doing that, and that is having a prospect-centric approach to all of your outbound versus a product-centric approach. So I'll speak a little bit about what I mean with that. So I mean, just to kick off, in fact, I'll do a little bit of a structure, mainly for me more than you guys, so that I don't forget what I'm speaking about. But obviously, I'll talk about the pros and cons of each. So a product-centric approach versus a prospect-centric approach. How to do both if you decide, and then how to leverage that to book the most meetings possible. So to kick off, I think just talking about selling instinctively, I think we all, and there's a scene I'm going to mention from The Wolf of Wall Street, which is really, really cliche because we're a room full of salespeople. Actually, this is where we can get the interactivity in. So if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, put your hands up. Yes, okay, good. So the scene from that is the sell me this pen scene. I'm sure you've all seen that. So they all go along, and one person says, "Oh, it's a great pen, you know, it's lovely ink, your signature will look great." And he takes the pen back, and they go along the line, and it's the last person then that says, "Write your name down on this piece of paper." And of course, he can't write his name down because he doesn't have a pen. And that is, you know, ultimately the person who did the best job. And the reason he did that, this is a bit of a trivial, a bit of a oversimplified example, but the reason that works is because he's created or found a problem, and he's used the pen as the bridge to solve that problem. So that's what you guys can all do on your cold calls and your cold emails. So just a bit of background on me, first of all. And how I started out. So I'm 19 now, as James said, or 42, which is how I look, how I feel when I get out of bed in the morning. And when I started out in sales, I was like 18 in 2 months, and I was in a call center in Portsmouth, which is, I would say, probably heaven on earth for anyone. You know, if you can go to Portsmouth, it's a beautiful town. I'm lying, obviously, if any of you have been to Portsmouth. And so that's what I was doing. I was making like 100 dials a day, 150 dials a day, just speaking to people. We had no management, no training, nothing like that. So I was just learning on the job. And I was using that instinctive selling of, okay, what's the product I'm selling? What are the features? What are the bells and whistles? And I was just blurting that out in my pitch and hoping that something would stick. And what I was coming across, and I don't know if this is something any of you guys have experienced, is that straight out of the gate, I was getting the objections. I'm not interested. It doesn't sound like something we need. We've got that covered. We've got something similar. So I was getting that all the time. And I just couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I was making the calls. I was pitching. I thought I sounded great on the phone. I was cocky. So, you know, I thought I was doing a great job, everything I needed to. But it wasn't working. So I thought, okay, back to the drawing board. And then Liv from Venatrix messaged me. Round of applause for Venatrix, guys. Great. Just shout out. She messaged me, and there was an opportunity at Cognism going. So I handed my notice in. I didn't actually work my notice, which was a bit bad. And then I didn't have money to pay for trains for the first month, so that was great. But moving on, before I start crying, that was a really dark time in my life. But I better look back down on my paper. The white wine, guys, don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, so in the 2 weeks that I had in between finishing my last job and starting at Cognism, I came across this guy, Benjamin Dennehy. So round of applause if you've ever heard of the UK's most hated sales trainer. He's great. And I thought, okay, I'm going to steal everything from this bloke. I'm not going to pay for any of his courses. I'm glad he's not here tonight because I didn't do that. I'm just going to listen to his YouTube videos, watch, stalk his LinkedIn, see what I can learn. And he taught me again, it's about being prospect-centric, being problem-centric. So I had 2 weeks to listen up and train up. And when I got to Cognism, I promised myself I was just going to try that and see how it worked. And if it worked, I'd stick with it. If it didn't, I'd go back to the old ways. And thank God it worked when I started, because I really don't know what I would have done. And what I found immediately when I made that switch, so let me just give you a bit of insight into how I do it at Cognism. I'll give 2 problems that we solve, and then I'll ask them in one way or another if that resonates with them in any way. So the problems we solve are knowing who to speak to, who's the best person to speak to in the company you're reaching out to. We can answer that question, then we provide you obviously the contact data to get in touch. If I was doing a more like a product-centric pitch, I might say we've got 4 times more mobiles and Zoom info than EMEA. No offense, guys, but speak to our guys after is all I'm saying. But no, you're great. So I moved away from that and went more towards, someone's laughing at the front, it's putting me off. I moved more towards a prospect-centric approach. So these are the two problems we solve. Does any of that apply? And then you've got a conversation, because they're either going to say yes or no. So it eliminates those immediate objections. And if they say no, that's not the end of it, because you need to find out why. You've got another conversation there. So I was finding immediately a lot less upfront objections and a lot more conversations I was having. So immediately that was the result there. And then obviously off the back of that, a lot more meetings. And there are a few other benefits to using this approach versus a product-led, pitch slap, feature-led approach. And that is, number one is rapport, right? So if you call someone, and I keep talking about calling because that's where I book pretty much all of my meetings. Some guy, Scarlett, who's here tonight, she's very, very good at LinkedIn. I don't know if it's the face. If I got a message from that, I don't know if I wouldn't go too well. I wouldn't go too well. So yeah, they can't see me on the phone, which I think is why I do so well. Again, lost my train of thought. It's going great. Yeah, so rapport when you're on the phone. If you call someone and in your pitch immediately, instead of talking about product, you're speaking about problems, they think, okay, this guy actually, he's in my world, he knows what he's talking about, let me let my barriers down a little bit and have a bit of a conversation here. So that's number one, and what you find is the conversation flows a lot easier, there's a lot less friction there. And then number two is, we've spoken tonight about alternative pathways. It was Bryan talking about account manager. But when you put your hands up in the room for what you guys wanted to be, I think most of it was account executive. So while these skills also apply for an account manager as well, it's really, really great to... I'm training at the minute to be account executive. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that they spend the majority of their time talking about their prospects' problems, their pains, their issues, their challenges, and very, very little time about how the product can actually solve it. They're not pitching or anything like that. So if you're building these habits early, from the minute you get in the door as an SDR, by the time it comes around to AE interviews or however you get progressed, stepping into the role of AE, I'm not saying it'll be easy, but it should hopefully be easier to make that jump. How am I doing for time, James? Because... Whoa, okay, right. So we've got this is how to, I'm going to speed up really quickly now. This is how to actually apply that, because I've told you why you should do it, I'll tell you how to do it. The number one most effective way for me is we sell to a lot of different personas, so it could be HR, finance, sales and marketing, like we do at Cognizant, Zoom Info as well. I do love you guys, really, and I feel bad now. But yeah, so speak to those personas within your company. Speak to the finance, speak to the sales team. How do they use your product? What are the pains that they're experiencing? And then use that in the pitch that I mentioned to you when you're speaking to your prospects. Lastly, you can use things like, if you really want to get specific and really want to get tailored, you can read company reports, you can do all that sort of personalization to figure out the specific business challenges, pains and goals, and use that in your opener, as opposed to... oh my God, excuse me, it was a white wine burp, I'm very sorry. And use that, and use that instead of feature slapping, pitch slapping. So that's my speech. And hopefully you've taken away how to book more meetings today. So thanks a lot, guys.
So I wanted to hear the speakers. Brad was one of our speakers tonight. I'm sure you'll see it on the replay. And was interested to hear the other speakers too. I would say what I find most interesting is the Q&A at the end. Just because it lets the crowd ask the things that they want to know off the back of the speeches that the performers do.
Our final speaker of the evening. We're going to be joined by Andy Laws. Andy is a senior business development manager at Braze, and he's going to be talking about the science of high performance. So Andy is a former elite level athlete, and he's transferred his skill for high performance into his sales career, achieving 3 promotions in 4 years, from BDR to senior BDR manager at Braze, booking 140 enterprise meetings and sourcing $7 million in qualified pipeline. With Braze, he's experienced the wild ride of achieving IPO as a company and has supported the scaling of the EMEA and APAC BDR team from 2 to 20 plus reps. He is the Sales Confidence 2022 Top 5 SDR leader and a strong believer that, rightly so, pineapple does indeed belong on a pizza. Note to time the caterers this evening.
Thank you very much. That was a nice build-up, so thank you. I'm going to kick off this talk by probably just giving a little bit more detail and background in addition to that very, very comprehensive introduction. But if we could have the next slide or the next couple of slides, that would be appreciated. You can move on. Yeah. So I'm going to go work from this side over to this side. That very, very cute boy on the left-hand side was me at the age of about 8 or 9 years old. And he had a dream. He wanted to be a professional county cricketer earning 50 grand a year. Not an astronaut, not a rugby player, not an F1 driver. He wanted to be a professional cricketer. Fast forward about 10 years, I was fortunate to actually go and fulfill that dream. At the age of about 17 or 18, I signed my first contract with Middlesex County Cricket Club. That dream lasted for about 4 years. So by the age of 22, I'd lacked consistency. I'd never really fulfilled my potential, and I'd also struggled with injuries, and my career was over. I then spent the next 3 to 4 years or so after the end of my career working out what the hell I was going to do. I went back to school, I got a master's degree, and then in the end, I ended up working in marketing for a short period of time, and then my girlfriend, who's actually in the room somewhere, who's a sales development director at Duro, suggested maybe you should give being an SDR a go. So I transferred over, having never heard of SaaS before, having never heard of what really an SDR is, and then I ended up at Braze, and I've been there ever since. It's obviously been a really fun journey, and there's been some successes along the way, and I haven't really looked back, and there's some of the amazing team here tonight as well, so shout out to you guys for being in. If we could move to the next slide, I've got some questions for you, and I am going to make you raise your hand as well. These two middle-aged white men on the left-hand side, does anyone know who they are? Dan Phelan. Nice. And to you as well, nice. Who knows those two individuals on the other side of the screen? If no one knows who they are, you must be living under a rock. So we've got Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. Thank you very much. Hand up if you've seen the film Moneyball. Okay, so a decent proportion of the room. For the people that haven't seen the film Moneyball, or for the people that haven't watched it in a long time, I'll give you a bit of a background. So the film Moneyball is based on a true story of the Oakland Athletics, which is a Major League Baseball team in the United States. Now, Billy Beane, who is the general manager, and this chap, played by this chap, is the general manager, and he's got a problem. They're rubbish, and they've got a tiny payroll. They've got the second smallest payroll of any team in Major League Baseball. So he's getting qualitative feedback from his coaches and from his scouts, and they're bringing new players in, and nothing is working. There's no improvement whatsoever in the team. They're spending millions of dollars a year to still be rubbish. So he goes left field, and he hires Peter Brand, who doesn't come from a baseball background. He's actually an economics graduate from Harvard, played by Jonah Hill. And what they end up doing is Jonah Hill comes into the organization and utilizing the quantitative data, i.e. numbers, and a database of specific data points associated to all sorts of variations of information in the game of baseball, they end up collating what appears to be a complete mismatch or like really odd collection of players that end up going on to be one of the most successful teams in baseball and one of the most consistent teams in baseball, despite actually still having a tiny payroll in comparison to the Boston Red Sox or the New York Yankees. So you'd be thinking, why on earth have you spent the first half of this talk talking about sport? Yes, obviously it's your background, but what does that have to do with me? Well, I want to give you two examples of what I wish I'd done in my athletic career to be more consistent and potentially fulfill actually where I could have got to within the game, and then also speak to how you can then go and apply that in your day-to-day as an SDR leader. So if we could move forward a slide, that's a very youthful me at about 18 years old. This is a hypothetical example of maybe one of the goals that would have been set by my coaches. So the two things that I really want to call out in here, I'm not going to go into the nuances of the language that's on this page because cricket's really boring, but there's two things I would call out. There's the goal attainment piece. How is it that you can use data points to your advantage to create consistency in the way that you go and hit your goals? How do you avoid that spikiness of one quarter or 1 month hitting your goal and the other month not hitting your goal? And then the second thing is skill development. How can you actually understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are? How do you then go and think about how do I lean into those strengths? And then how do I either avoid my weaknesses altogether or actually work on them so that I can accelerate my trajectory towards completing that end goal? Okay, so the two are intertwined. That's enough about cricket and sport for now. Let's actually put the SDR lens on this. So if we could, yep, that's perfect. Many of you in the room probably have some form of similar targets to something like this. You may be based quarterly, or you may be based monthly. You may be based only on meetings, but you may also be based on actually pushing qualified opportunities into pipeline like our team is. So what can you look at from data point perspectives to go and understand how to go and hit your quota? Well, there's 4 up here. How many accounts do you need to work on a weekly basis? We had, I think it was Bella, speak to the number of accounts, or agreeing on the accounts that you actually need to work with your AE over a period of time. So through a quarter or through a month, how many accounts do you need to work? How many quality conversations per week and per day do you need to be having with your prospects to make sure that you're actually booking those meetings? How can you track that? How can you view what those quality conversations are? How many meetings do you need a week? And then how many of those meetings are you actually converting into pipeline, if that's applicable to you in the role? From a skill development standpoint, obvious one, what's your open rate, what's your apply rate, what's your connect rate? Have an understanding of how your outreach is performing. Then have an understanding of what is your meeting conversion percentage. Now, the maths ain't difficult. It's a 33% conversion rate. So you need 10 sales accepted opportunities in 30 meetings. If you're outside of that, if it's taking you 5, 6, 7 meetings booked to get an opportunity into pipeline, something's going wrong, right? You're either working the wrong accounts, you're either not qualifying and doing the discovery aggressively enough. Are you getting enough prospects into those opportunities early enough to make them sticky, to give the AE confidence to progress them forwards? All applicable variables to try and bring the meeting conversion bit down. Then you've got meetings booked breakdown by percentage. So have consideration for, obviously people work different segments or different territories, but where are you actually booking your meetings and who are you booking them with? Which personas are you really strong with? Like, are you really comfortable with booking meetings with marketing people, but not so comfortable with booking meetings with CTOs, for example? Lean in. Go and upskill yourself on actually what's going to make the difference when it comes to booking a meeting with a CTO. What do they care about? Then have a think about the company size. Like if you're split by mid-market or enterprise or SMB, you might have some restrictions there. And then by industry, right? Do you have particular industries that you have a passion for or that you're strong in that you can go and spend more time in? Do you need to upskill yourself across other industries to understand what your value prop is? The final thing I'll call out on this slide is go and speak to the people that are doing a better job than you, either across all of these areas or across individual areas. Go and benchmark yourself through the use of data to understand where you actually fitting in a stack rank against data points like these. And then go and have the conversations to work out what they're doing differently to you. Okay? And if you're in the room and you're going, well, I'm the top performer in my team, go and speak to some other top performers in this room and work out actually how you're doing against those people. So if we move on a slide, the final data point that I want to talk to is company-wide data, and this is the one that I really champion with our team because it's really interesting and really powerful. So the first thing I would call out, same to the last slide, the meeting breakdown, okay? So which industries, which personas, which company sizes is your organization having the most success with, right? If your company books a ton of meetings in the Nordics and you've got the opportunity to go and work that territory, go and work it. Same with the industries and same with personas. Utilize the trends within your organization to your advantage. The close one breakdown, same principle. Where are you actually winning business? Ultimately, you're going to want your name attached to as many logos, net new logos that are coming into the organization as possible so that your personal brand is strong as you go through and you can quite clearly see you've got a tangible impact on the business. Opportunity progression by number of prospects. I think we've touched on this already. Like, understand how many prospects it actually takes to go from no conversation through to close one, and how can you go about trying to multi-thread as quickly and as efficiently as possible, not just from a hierarchical standpoint, but then also across departments, right? The more cohesion that you've got across departments, particularly in enterprise, the better opportunity you've got at progressing your opportunities, both through into pipeline, but then also into close one. And the final thing I'll touch on is close lost opportunities. And there's 2 ways that we primarily use this data. The first way we use it is to understand where we are losing business, right? Is there a particular industry or other competitors in your industry that are stronger in e-commerce, for example, right? Or particularly strong in gaming, for example, for us, like we'd have consideration for those. Do we need to steer clear of those? The other way that we would look at it is actually close lost opportunities is a good thing. Because what we've done at some point in the past is had a conversation with that organization and with those prospects whereby we know that they kind of know what we do already, and we can go back out periodically and say, you know what, is now better? Is now the right time to go and have that conversation? And, I think probably on a quarterly or a biannual basis, we'll look to have those conversations across, close lost opportunities over a 24 or 36 month window, knowing full well, obviously, contracts are signed at that kind of length, particularly in enterprise. So with that in mind, I'm going to leave you with some takeaways. Hopefully they stick. The first one is be like Billy Beane and Peter Brand, right? The difference between the high-performing BDRs that I've had experience and exposure to working within our organization that have gone on and done great things as account executives, not just as BDRs, they care about the data, and they know that the data doesn't lie. All right? It's very objective. You can look at it and take direction off it very quickly and create consistency and also create efficiencies in the way that you operate. You're not wasting time in areas that you don't need to waste time in. Go and have a go at looking for the data yourself, whether it's SalesLoft or whether it's Outreach or whether it's HubSpot, whatever it might be. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say other names. Go and look at your own performance data from an outreach perspective. The other place to go and look is your CRM. Try and go and understand whether you can source some of those other data points that I referenced before or something that's similar. If you're either struggling with that data or you'd like to validate that data, go and speak with your sales ops or your rev ops team, and then go and speak with your leader as well. Any proficient SDR leader or team lead should have a pretty good understanding of the data that exists in your organization and how to interpret it, right? So they can support you. And arguably the most important one here is just take action. Go and get into the data, as I said, about being Billy Beane and Peter Brand. Go and get your hands on some data, and then actually go and test it. Set some hypothesis for yourself as to what you think is going to push the needle in your performance, and then go and give it a go. The final thing I would say is periodically or fairly consistently come back to those hypotheses and actually just check whether they're working. All right? There's no point setting a hypothesis, working on it for 6, 7, 8 months, and then not actually understanding whether it's working or not. So, every 2 to 4 weeks, go back, review. Does the data look the same? Does my performance look the same? Or have I made incremental improvements to the way that I'm working? So with that in mind, well done for making it through all 6 talks. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll hand it back over.
So we are now moving into the Q&A. So I hope you guys are all ready, raring to go with your questions. Has anybody got a question to kick us off? Okay, I'll give you guys a second. So I would love to know from each of you a creative idea that people could put into practice for outreach right now. So maybe something you've done or an idea that you've got. Bryan, you're nodding. I feel like you've got to go first.
Yeah, I gave a tip to a group today. We learned this from the DACH region, which is very strange, but start using memes and GIFs in your outreach. The quickest and easiest way of doing this, we all send an email, and then we send a bump email that says, hey, what did you think of my first email? Test it. One of which just text, the one after that, Google waiting for your reply skeleton. So it's just a skeleton waiting for your reply. It's very simple. You got that image in your brain. Now you can figure out whether or not humor works with the humans that you're sending messages to. Just test that. That's a tip. And I saw a 30% boost in my reply rates to my memes versus my non-memes. So that's a tip for somebody who wants to use it.
Particularly in our growth markets, so I'm thinking of the guys in France and Germany and Spain at the moment. One of the things that we're struggling with is data accuracy of emails, and we get a lot of bounces, right? So one of the things that we'll look to do is we'll take a screenshot of the original email that we've tried to send to the prospect, and then either if we've got a phone number, we might try WhatsApp, or we'll use LinkedIn InMail, but actually just have a screenshot of the original email that we wanted to send, and that's an opportunity to get your message across that you originally tried to send.
You've all probably heard the saying, show your prospect, you know them. I, in my previous role, and now sell to e-commerce businesses. Obviously, you've got to manage this cost effectively, but I've sent selfies in people's jumpers, or if I've used their protein powder, I've sent them a selfie with it. If they're, for example, shops, I've gone into the shop and taken a selfie there. Obviously, I'm not saying go and buy everyone's thing before you try and sell to them, but It can work. I've had replies from it, people that have opened all my emails, ignored me. As soon as they've seen that I was a customer, they've acknowledged it. One of the ones I'm prospecting at the moment is On. A few of the lads probably know them. But I've opened up my inbox to them, done a video, and they can see all of my purchase orders from 2021. So they know I'm a customer and I can relate to them. I know their business.
Cool. Yeah, I'll go next. Something that's really worked for us on email is if you find your prospects' hobbies or interests, without getting too stalkery, sometimes it's pretty available. You can relate that to your product. So, for example, something that worked for us last week is someone was a yoga instructor. So, head of CS was also a yoga instructor, and one of our SDRs found a way to link like a yoga class to our product, which I don't know if you remember, is essentially a software that helps you identify churn and increase upsells as well. So you can get really creative and make it relevant to people in a way that's interesting and like no one else is doing it.
Yeah, I've got one. It's actually not outreach, so everyone's given an outreach one. I'll give, I think, an important part of doing well as an SDR. I don't know how everyone else does it, but at Cognizant, often we have to find our own accounts, especially in enterprise if we want to do well. The best ones are the ones that find their own accounts. And speaking from experience in enterprise, I don't know if you guys use SalesNav or however you find your accounts. You'd be going through, checking Salesforce, and they're all taken, all of the good ones anyway. And I can't remember where I thought to do this or who told me, but I definitely stole it from someone. It seems quite intuitive, but I just hadn't thought of it before. And that's checking either your favourite sports teams, so it could be football teams. For me, it was F1 teams, so I was going on McLaren's sponsor page, checking the sponsors, because enterprise tech is massive. You know, they invest massively in their partnerships with sports. So I found a lot of really good accounts that perhaps people just hadn't thought to check. Darktrace was one, Databricks, Slack was another one as well. And I just found them from going through my favourite sports team sponsors and finding it that way. Also Tube advertisements as well. Just always be checking.
Yeah, so mine's more of an outreach. I really like voice noting people. I think on LinkedIn, like, you know, sometimes obviously you can type out a message and stuff like that, but like to speak, it can come quite naturally and it's just quite easy to kind of send them out sometimes. And I think people are a bit more curious sometimes to see what someone else has had to say rather than just another message that blends into your inbox. So yeah, in terms of sort of creativity, voice notes is the one I would go for.
Perfect. Thank you. Some creative ideas there. Right, questions from the floor. Someone's got to have a question for these guys. There we go. Introduce yourself, ask your question.
Hi guys, I'm Natasha and I've just started as a BDR at Juro. I was just wondering, because I've seen quite a lot of different approaches to social selling, which is only a term that I realised existed this week. I'd seen quite a lot of SDRs kind of developing their own personal brand and becoming like LinkedIn influencers, and obviously with the boom of podcasting. I wonder whether any of you guys have capitalised on that, and if you had any advice for anyone that's looking to potentially capitalise on that.
Yeah, since I've got the mic, I'll start. At my current organisation, no one really is actively building a personal brand on LinkedIn, whether that be through posting, but I know in the past, and I know of colleagues at other companies who absolutely do that, and it means that when they do send voice notes or videos on LinkedIn, it's just so much more credible, and people have already seen you. So if that's the approach that you take, and the approach that actually works for your market and for the buyers that you're prospecting into, then capitalize on it, right? But I'm sure there's many people here who sell to maybe data engineers who aren't really on LinkedIn, so like building a personal brand wouldn't really make as much sense. My best advice is know your market and see actually if there's a need for you to build a brand for them.
We've definitely got some LinkedIn influencers on the stage here, so come on guys, what you got?
Yeah. So that's actually how I got my job in Google. I was a student and then I started posting on LinkedIn. I started doing a bunch of things and then I was spotted and started doing some things with that. 3 things you need to do. First one is you need to start commenting on people who have over 1,000 or preferably over 5,000 connections. You can see that where they have many connections. Start commenting on their posts. That's a very easy one. Make sure your comments are more than 8 words. That's what the algorithm likes. Second thing is do start posting. Less than, Tom Boston says it's either 1% or 10%. I'll go with 10%. Less than 10% of LinkedIn accounts post more than once a week. So if you post once a week, you're in the top 1%, it is 1% of content creators on LinkedIn. If you post more than once a day, if you post once a day, you're more than in the top 0.1%. That's not that difficult, however, so just pick up something to do once a week. And then the last one is make sure that your profile is kind of just set up the way it is. You know, make sure that you've got a picture, you've got everything plugged in. If you're posting once a week, you've got a nice profile and you're commenting on people who have audiences, you're already ahead of most of everybody else. What isn't very important about what Gab said is some people are not on LinkedIn. So if developers are on Twitter, be on Twitter. Do the exact same thing. If you're selling to Facebook moms, go to Facebook moms groups. Just be where they are. But those are just some quick wins at the beginning.
On Bryan's point about being where they are and knowing who you're selling to, this is more of a what not to do. I have followed all the Venatrix girls for ages. They're selling to salespeople, right? You're lively, you're in everyone's face. I loved it. That's how I got my first SDR role. You work with her, everyone probably knows Charlotte Johnson. She's loud, she's in your face, she gets to the point, but she's selling to salespeople. If you sell to finance people, they're going to see your video of you jumping up and down. They're probably not going to resonate with that. So just check your persona. When I first started, I was doing all these motivational posts, talking about books that I was reading. People in marketing and CRM probably don't care. So just be careful with your persona and also look at what not to do, as well as the great tips people like these have given you as what to do as well.
I mean, we've been given some very good tips, so I don't know how much I'm really going to add to this. Just a very simple one that, again, very intuitive. I just wasn't doing it before and started doing it since. And that's just checking, we've spoken about being proactive, right? Don't wait for people to come to you, be proactive. And a really good way to do that, if you're building a brand on LinkedIn, is to check who's viewing your profile. Obviously, we can all do that. And reach out to them proactively, connect to them proactively, because there's a lot of people that might have seen your content from someone who's liked it, and so on and so forth, and they've not sent you a connection request, and it could be someone in your account. So just always make sure that you're checking who's viewing your profile and be proactive with either connecting or reaching out to them is just the one I would say. Jeff?
I mean, I personally need to work on building my personal brand, so I'm going to take the tips rather than give another one.
Thank you very much. Should we have one more question from the floor, James? Yep. Have we got another question for? Oh, we've got loads now. Here we go. What's your name? Where'd you come from?
Hello, my name is Anna. I'm that person who is new here, and I'm very happy that I found a sales community in London, because I'm from Ukraine and I'm not a beginner in sales generation and management, sales management. What steps you can recommend to build a career here if I want to be a business development and SDR? Just what steps you can recommend if person is beginning here in sales and generation?
So just to play back that question, it's what do you want to do, or what should you do, or what advice have you got to someone that's trying to find a career? Or okay, cool. If I were you, I would try and position yourself in the shoes of already being a BDR or an SDR, right? So my advice to you would be, create a short list of accounts or companies that you would like to work for, that you'd have consideration that looks like a cool business to go and work with. After that, I would then go through and understand who are the decision makers and influencers when it comes to hiring for that role. Okay? Once you've got that short list of contacts, you can then think about actually how am I going to do outreach? So you've got tools available to you that you can get access to contact details. So something like Apollo, I think, is probably free. Or Cognizant, yeah. Is that free? Can you get free? Yeah. Okay, apparently there's some free trials going around, so think about the tools. Get access to the data, and then think about what it is that you can do to send a cold outreach email. Go and Google, go on YouTube what a good cold outreach email does. Go and personalize it, and put yourself in front of the hiring manager with your CV. Do something creative, create a video, follow up with a cold call, right? If you've got access. I never get cold calls from people looking for jobs, and I wish I did. So yeah, think about how it is that you can leverage being a BDR before you're a BDR would be my advice, because you're giving them an insight as to immediately what you can bring to the table thereafter.
Just very quickly, how I got my job, or one of the ways I got my job in Sales Loft, I reached out to every single SDR that was on the team and asked them for 15 minutes. Almost every single one of them was able to give me that time, and that meant that by the time my manager, at the time, my SDR manager, was putting me through the process, every single person on the team was already knew me and already had the psychological safety to add me to the team.
Yeah, it's just a quick one, although I completely agree with both of those, and if I was looking for a job, I would do those. Alongside this, you're sat in a room full of salespeople that work for sales teams. Speak to people. James has already invited people to have a chat with him. You're in a room full of recruiters for SaaS companies. Speak to Venatrix. I've got a role through them, and James connected with me with someone. I kind of prospected them, like Andy said, and now I'm in my second role. So utilise the room you're sat in tonight. Keep going to events. Even when probably like you can say you've moved on to an account manager, you probably go to other events as well where you're in similar rooms. You're always going to have an opportunity to put yourself out there. Obviously, sales confidence is a title I mentioned. Right? You've got to have that confidence in yourself and sort of not be scared and just what's the worst that can happen by going to have a chat, really.
Any more? No? Okay, then, well, yeah, I'm doing that. Put your hands up if you're one of our fabulous speakers on the stage. Big round of applause for them. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you very much to the speakers. Just one round of applause to yourselves for your attention. I really appreciate it. Round of applause, well done.